Hey, it's Kelly. Welcome back to my channel where we talk all about gentle skincare, sometimes self-care, and today we're talking 5 tips for cold weather skincare. Yeah, it's starting to get chilly. Are you feeling it? I definitely am, and my skin is feeling it too. When the temperatures drop, when things get drier and colder and harsher, it can definitely affect our skin and our skin barrier. So today I want to share with you 5 of my top tips for surviving winter temperatures in your skincare routine. So if you're so ready, give the video a big thumbs up and let's jump in. Tip number 1. Moisture, moisture, moisture. This is the time of year where we want to amp up that moisture, bring in all the emolliency, the richness, the creaminess, the silkiness, right? We definitely want to nourish and condition our skin with lots of moisture. So in your skincare routine, you're probably looking at your moisturizer, wondering like, is this enough? Is it time to, switch out to something a little bit more nourishing? I have already done actually a few videos on moisturizers that I think are appropriate for cold weather. So you will want to check that video out if you're looking at your moisturizer. But definitely if you're looking to make the most minimal change in your routine, but your skin is feeling it from the cold weather, this is where I suggest you look first, is your moisturizer. You may need something creamier, silkier, more nourishing for these colder temperatures. And another tip when it comes to moisture and moisturizers is don't be afraid to play around with like a morning moisturizer and a night moisturizer. This is kind of old school advice. You use a different cream in the morning than you do at nighttime, but especially in the winter, you may find that the really rich, nourishing creams are just a little too overwhelming during the day. They're too moisturizing. Maybe they interfere with your makeup if you wear it, right? So don't be afraid to save those more nourishing creams exclusively for nighttime, especially if you are waking up with your skin feeling a lot more parched and dry. And I'll address this further in the video, but if you're noticing more dryness when you wake up in the morning than you are throughout the day, this would be a sign that like a richer cream at night and then maintaining your morning moisturizer would be a good solution for you. Now, another kind of easy way that you can just sort of ramp up the moisture and emolliency in your current skincare routine without changing things up too much is to either switch out your essence or add in like a toner or an essence that has a milky, creamy texture. Yeah, toners and essences don't just have to have that watery, light texture. And if you watch my channel, you are aware of how many textures and qualities that toners and essences can bring to the skin. But this is a really big category of products that have become very popular over the last few years. So there's a lot of choices right now, and I've got you covered with a whole dedicated video on this as well. So if you're looking to find the best product recommendation for your skin type, please check these videos out. I'm going to link them on screen now, but I'm also going to put them in the pinned comment as well as the description box for you. But this can be an area that can be really easy without switching out your dedicated treatment serum, right? Or without having to switch too much up in your skincare routine. Maybe if you want to amp up the moisture, add in a nourishing essence or a toner that has a creamy, silky texture. It can sometimes be just that nudge in the right direction that keeps your skin really balanced, really soft, resist the dehydration and the dryness without breaking the bank. Moisture is one thing, but tip number 2 is all about occlusion, baby. Slug that skin. So slugging is the technique of helping to seal all your skincare in at night. I say tuck all your skincare in to help keep it in place, right? And while you're sleeping, so that when you wake up, your skin is not only glowing, right, but it's hydrated, it's moisturized, it's smooth because all your skincare has been slugged in place, right? And the way that you do that, the proper slugging products do bring a quality of occlusion to the skin. So we talked about moisture being, rich and creamy and skin softening, right? And occlusion, these types of ingredients are ingredients that kind of create a little bit of a barrier on top of the skin, a little bit of a seal, right? A protective layer on the skin. So these are qualities that don't let anything out, right? And don't let anything in. And so great ingredients for this, definitely classics, are like dimethicone and petrolatum because they really do create that barrier and that seal. So one technique that I like that is in the spirit of slugging is using La Roche-Posay Cicaplast Balm mixed into my moisturizer of choice. Now this is, let me tell you, something that I started leaning on heavily in the dead of winter last year. It was January, which is one of the coldest months where I live, which is the upper Midwest. It's very cold here. Middle of January, and I was sick with COVID. So not only was my skin suffering with this illness, right, that was making my skin like sensitive and inflamed and dry. We have this blizzard and all this wind and iciness and coldness happening. And it's just like the worst month, January, February, worst months of winter. And so what I started to do was I started mixing in like a pea size, like kind of like a generous pea size amount of the Cicaplast balm into my current moisturizer, which was Cerave moisturizing cream, because that moisturizer, love it, but it wasn't quite enough with all of that going on, right? All of that coming at my skin. And so I started mixing in Cicaplast, and what it does is it does two things really. One, it makes the cream more fluffy, more luxurious, and more moisturizing, and a lot thicker and richer. And so, first and foremost, it creates a moisturizer that is going to give so much more moisture and comfort and soothing to the skin. One of the ingredients in here is madecassoside. That's one of the biologically active compounds of the centella plant. So it actually soothes redness and inflammation and sensitivity that I was getting, especially from having that illness, right? I really calmed my skin down in that sense. But it does also feature a good amount of dimethicone. And as I mentioned, this is an ingredient that brings occlusion. And this is, like I said, in the spirit of slugging, this ingredient creates a temporary seal, if you will, a healing ointment basically on the skin, that barrier that helps all of my toner, essence, serum, oil, cream, all of that really hug into my skin. And so it's not only helps to resist dehydration, right, which is the loss of hydration through the skin, especially it happens a lot when you're sleeping. I'll talk about this later. So it helps to keep everything in, right? But you can also lose a lot of your skincare on your sheets and on your pillows and stuff too. And so that little bit of that barrier kind of helps to resist that as well. And so it is really fantastic for hugging everything in, calming down the skin, bringing more moisture. Sleeping packs, by the way, just the dedicated sleeping packs can be a really great option, especially if you don't have a very dry skin type. If you're a little bit more on the oily side and you're like, I don't like all these heavy creams and I don't want to seal my skin off too much, but I know I need a little bit more. The world of sleeping packs is where you want to go for your slugging technique, because there's so many different textures. It's not just about slathering yourself in a thick layer of Vaseline, which for sure is not going to feel good on oily skin. You can get hydrating gel-like textures in sleeping packs. You can get very, very light, very thin lotion-like textures, and everything in between, thick creams, gels, a hybrid between the two. There's a whole world out there, and that's more appropriate for folks who don't do well with heavier layers or really moisturizing layers. Now, I did talk about petrolatum, and that's the ingredient that is in Vaseline, Aquaphor, Cerave healing ointment. That's, we see everybody putting that onto their face, and it definitely is one of the most occlusive ingredients out there, and it really is it's really going to slug your skin, right? And by the way, certain creams, you can actually mix a dab of your petrolatum ointment straight into your moisturizer already, and that kind of helps to thin it out a little bit. So it's not as sticky, it's not as heavy, it's not quite as thick, but it is building more occlusion into your moisturizer layer. And so sometimes I'll do this when I go outside to shovel snow and blizzards. I'll put a layer mixed in with my moisturizer onto my skin to help protect from wind burn and things like that. Now, I also want to mention that you can spot treat, because sometimes these heavier layers feel really good in certain areas. Hello, combo skin, but it doesn't feel good in other places, or maybe you start to get whiteheads, maybe especially big culprit around your nose, or maybe you start to get congestion in your forehead area. Feel free, I give you the permission slip to change the script up a little bit, right? And you can slug just in your problem areas. I will do this a lot in the summertime because I'm prone to drier under eye areas, because my eyes just, can get very watery and that dries out the skin around my eyes, I'll just put a layer of petrolatum around my eye. Feel free to spot treat. It's absolutely okay to do that. And finally, I also want to mention this slugging technique can be amazing for your lips as well. Lips can get so dry in the winter, right? So what you could do is you could put a layer. I actually like doing this at night. You do get a bit of a white cast, but it's fine at nighttime, right? A layer of the Cicaplast onto my lips, and then I'll like just hug it all in with a thick layer of like Aquaphor on my lips, and that brings the soothing relief if your lips are starting to get irritated. It will bring soothing, it will bring softening, and then the Aquaphor protects. There's also some great emollients in Aquaphor too that help to soften and moisturize the skin. That's like the only lip balm that I use outside of like lip color, right? Is Aquaphor. It's amazing for the lips. So don't forget you can slug your lips too. Tip number 3, humidity is your BFF. Now, when it gets cold outside, the heating goes on inside, right? And all of that forced hot air actually can dry out the environment here. So even it can be humid during the winter, but it can be quite dry inside. And so that dryness in the air, that lack of humidity, right? That lack of moisture can actually induce something called transepidermal water loss in our skin. And that's basically dehydration. So deep within the layers of your skin, you have all this good hydration, and we're always replenishing it with our beautiful skincare products, right? But when the air is super dry, it can start to take the hydration from our skin. And especially if we're struggling with a weak or damaged moisture barrier, you're going to feel this even more because the barrier is what helps to keep all the hydration in. When it's weak or damaged, there's basically, it's a compromise barrier, right? There's holes, there's a weakness, right? And so a vulnerability. So the hydration actually escapes even easier. This is really the reason why occlusion and slugging works to resist transepidermal water loss, especially if your barrier is damaged, because you're creating another barrier on top of your skin that can kind of help to a certain extent, right, to resist this, depending on how severe it is for your skin. So barriers are important because it helps to keep the hydration in. And when the air is so dry and there is a lack of humidity, it will start to kind of draw out of your skin. And this is why I was saying earlier, when you wake up in the morning and your skin feels really dry and tight, it's because you're experiencing transepidermal water loss. So it could be partially due to maybe you need to strengthen up that skin barrier and get some more good ceramides into your routine. It could also just be that the air is incredibly dry. And so to resist all of that dryness, and you feel it too when you wake up in your throat and in your eyes, if your mouth is dry, these are all signs that the air in your environment is just too dry and we need to get some more humidity in there. And so a humidifier, this is one of the most underrated skincare tips, I think, quite honestly, because when the environment is so dry, everything in your body starts to dry up. And we know dryness is not what the name of the game for that glowy glass skin, right? So sleep with a humidifier. When you go to bed, turn it on. It will add some water, some moisture into the air. And when there's a higher moisture content in the air, it's less likely that it's going to escape from your skin. It's going to be much more skin respectful. And like I said, if you're struggling, if you're, coughing a lot when you wake up because your throat is so dry and scratchy, if you're feeling it in your nose and in your eyes, just invest in a humidifier. Like I promised you, it's the most underrated skincare tip, but it's amazing for the health of your body too. We want everything to be all nice and moist. Tip number 4, don't forget to exfoliate. Now, it can be really hard to get that really glowy lit from within skin in the dead of winter. Like, trust me, I relate, I know. Dull skin, dry, flaky skin can really be commonplace in the cold temperatures. We have a lot working against us, right? But this is where exfoliation can come in. And I think especially the use of AHAs can be very helpful very quickly when you notice your skin is starting to get a little bit more dull and a little bit more flaky, and maybe you're noticing a little bit more texture on your skin. So I have been falling in love with the Dr. Idriss Major Fade Flash Mask over the last little bit longer than a year now. I love this because it uses glycolic acid, lactic acid, and tranexamic acid. Now, AHA, as I said, which is the lactic acid in here as well as the glycolic acid, this is a great chemical exfoliant that works exactly for what I just said, for the dry, dull, flaky skin. It works on top of the skin to take away all the flakes, to smooth out the texture, to soften the skin, but it also helps to brighten up the skin. And when you're using it consistently, it can also just help with your well-aging goals too. And so it just kind of rejuvenates the skin and all that dullness, this mask, it's a wash off. So you put it on for like 10-15 minutes, wash it off. Your face is just going to look glowier like instantly. The tranexamic acid too is particularly helpful for folks who struggle with hyperpigmentation, which I do. And so this is just like that little bit of that perk up, that little like baby facial, if you will, that you can use once a week, twice a week, right? You don't want to overdo it, especially in the winter, because our skin barrier can be a little bit more prone to becoming weak or damaged. So I do want to kind of caveat that if you're struggling with your moisture barrier, don't go in for the AHAs, go in for the ceramides, right? And really strengthen up your barrier. But if your barrier is in a good place and you're looking for the glow up, you want to emerge from all that dullness and all that flakiness. Truly, my favorite is an AHA mask. And tip number 5, do not drop it like it's hot. Watch that hot water usage. Now, I will admit to you, one of my most favorite, most pleasurable things on the planet, especially when it's cold outside, is a hot bath. Oh, it's just, sometimes it's the only thing that will like warm my soul and my body. You know what I mean? Especially if I've been outside for any period of time. I'm very prone to like really catching chill. And I always say the cold is in my bones. Like I just can't shake it. Like I just can't get warm. A hot bath will really do the trick. And I'm not telling you to not take hot baths. I'm not telling you to not take your hot showers. Truly so pleasurable, right? Let's not take away any of that in our lives. Okay. However, I will say that the hot water, especially if we're talking scalding hot water, like your skin's starting to turn a little red, right? You want to watch that temperature and be careful because that hot water can really strip all the good moisture from our skin. I call it the essential moisture in our skin, and it can actually weaken our skin barrier over time, which I've mentioned a few times now. In cold weather, you need to keep a more meticulous eye on your skin barrier because the weather, the dryness, all of this is really testing it. It's up against it, right? We want to baby it. We want to take care of it. We want to keep our eye on it. When I'm in the shower or when I'm in the bath, sometimes if my skin is feeling more vulnerable, I'll put on a wash-off mask actually. And it helps two things. Number one, it's multitasking. And I am all into like, I love a good elaborate skincare routine, but I don't want to spend a ton of time, right? Like I have my limit. And so multitasking I was going to say multi-masking, but that's not what this is. Masking and tasking is what it is, right? Put your mask on, get into your bath or get into your shower. Avoid the spray, right? But you're creating this protective layer on your skin with the wash off mask. And so it's protecting you from the spray so you can get all that hot temperature on the rest of your body, but it's helping to keep your skin hydrated and moisturized and protected from that hot water until you're at the end of the shower or your bath or whatever. So not all wash-off masks work for this technique, I will admit, especially if your bath is quite steamy and hot. Some of them are cream type of textures, can actually just melt right off. But one that I think has the perfect texture that I'm going to recommend is the I'm from Mugwort mask. It has this clingy gel texture. So it actually, it's very soothing. It's great for redness and inflammation, but the gel texture really clings to the face well and stands up to the moisture and the humidity and heat of a shower or a bath really beautifully. So it's a great way to protect your skin. I actually did this many, many years ago when I discovered why this works is because my skin barrier was damaged in wintertime, like severely damaged. And so I started to use this mask in the shower to protect my skin because even just the water would like make my my skin feel so dry, so tight, so irritated because my barrier was that damaged. And so the masks actually helped me get through that quite a bit. So I hope these tips helped you bring your A game to this cold weather season. And I'm curious if you have some tips for cold weather, maybe that I didn't mention here. As I say, this is a community. Let's help each other out. Drop all your great tips in the comments below. Now, if this video was helpful to you and you made it to the end, please hit subscribe. Come join our skincare community. I'm very active here on YouTube. I post long form videos and shorts, so definitely turn on notifications so you're never out of the loop. Thanks for being here with me today. I love you so much, and I really do hope that you are healthy, happy, and safe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.